Hey guys, it's your girl Aisha, aka Geek XX Chic, and I'm back with another episode of Cloak and Dagger. This is the second half of the premiere, or episode 2, and this one is called, hold up, wait a minute, I got it. Suicide Sprints. Damn. Now, when I was in school a few thousand years ago, suicide sprints were something you did in gym class. Basically, you'd run from line to line. Like, the gym always had the lines for, like, basketball and tennis and all the other things, and you'd have to run like from one line to the next line, and so you get to like the furthest one and you have to come back to the middle, and you basically had to do them as fast as you could. So I don't know if it's the same thing in the States, but that's what it was in Canada, and they weren't fun because you were exhausted by the time you were done. But anyway, not too much to really recap in the first episode. Like, I just literally just watched it. It was very much just an introduction. We got an intro to the world. We understand, you know, Tyrone and Tandy's world. Conversely, we know that they both are kind of in some really rough spots in their lives. Tandy in particular because of her criminal activity, but now Tyrone, his identity is known by the police officer who probably thought that his murder had been covered up all these years. A lot of things at stake already, which I like. We're jumping right into this plot, and I think it's just going to come down to getting Tyrone and Tandy back together and actually talking, and maybe her not trying to steal more things from him, and then they can figure out what the next steps are as far as what to do with their abilities. They both definitely have some vendettas to fix. Tandy, obviously, with the company that took everything from her and her family, and also with Tyrone, of course, with this cop who killed his brother and then covered it up. So I'm excited to get into this second episode. So without further ado, let's start watching. Boop. Just, oh man, that's a bad omen. I really hope the couple wasn't in that. You better hide that from your mama. She cannot take that right now. You explain how you're coming home with all this random stuff. This guy kind of looks like John Boyega a little bit, hey? Oh, he didn't sleep? No one. Poor kid. I wouldn't sleep anymore either. He's gonna have to start taking uppers just to keep teleporting.
8 years ago, Finn pushed us down hard. She got up first and picked us up with her. You know that, right?
Yeah, of course I do.
Be more like her. Coach you on full more like you on that court.
I don't think I could ever live up to that.
Aww. Aww. It's a lot of pressure. But I like that the mom's a role model.
Stabbing what?
Nice, man. What else do you stab people with?
Since
Right?
when do you carry a knife?
I don't exactly.
If he's alive, then that means he can still ID me.
If they find you,
If he's dead, then
that's
he
murder.
killed somebody, which... Jesus.
It was self-defense.
That's what I'm looking for.
And you do have a bruise to prove it.
All this anger inside of me. What if it came out and pointed me to the person who poisoned me? If I could find the person who caused it and punish him, poison him.
Ooh,
You're talking about finding that girl.
dark. Jealous. No idea. Mom's carrying a piece. Okay. And here I thought she was straight-laced. This is why you don't take pictures with your friends and put it on Facebook.
If you didn't commit a crime, I got a guy who can lock up in Minnesota for 3 bills. But if you did, you'll need a much better one.
Okay, how much better for how much?
That'll run you guys 11 grand.
Woo!
Bullshit.
Then you can do whatever you want.
Damn.
What do you want?
Crime does pay. Pays well. So that was a failed stakeout.
Tandy, is, everything okay?
Mm-hmm. Mama's got a man in the house.
Did you go to
Greg has been working hard on a new angle for our Roxanne case.
Sure he has.
Filed an injunction for us.
I'm sure he's been working that angle good, too.
Yeah, now it seems like you've really been working your pants off, Greg.
Like her.
Just like that, before you go in there.
I'll be on a bit.
They found your stash.
If your father was still alive, I swear to God, he would be heartbroken.
Wow. Her mom is a peach. With a B.
I didn't say stop.
Oh, they all punished because of him?
While I update this. Hi, how's it going?
Is this cop deaf? I realize I haven't heard her say a word yet. Literally. Suicides. It is the same. So it's definitely emotionally triggered for her. Uh-oh. Please tell me this is not about some bullying.
Oh, what's up, man?
Hey, we're on the same team, right?
Don't trust this kid at all.
Yeah.
Still there.
Treats her like the help. Is always putting her nose in other people's business and has resting basic face. Is that a thing?
It is now.
No, but it should be. Thank you for just being you.
You make it easy.
Oh, he's a big softy. I hope your hand's not glowing right now. That'd be real conspicuous.
Listen, I know I don't come from money or class like you do.
So she looks like she's
Give me a chance.
wedding dress?
Keep you safe.
Flash forward?
Do it.
Come on.
What's up?
Resting basic faces on less. You gotta bounce.
Oh, I get it. Just married. I said the car was stolen. Phew.
I keep it all together. Keep everything running like clockwork after all we've been through.
Drugs. And lots of wine.
Then I'd turn it into something positive.
Did it work?
Well, I'm keeping it all together, aren't I?
Are ya?
Trying my best to put some good folks in office, make life safer for some other families.
I mean, you were just pulled a gun on what I'm assuming was a raccoon earlier today, so. What is this? It's really hard to tell when these guys are having like fantasies and when they're not.
Stay close. Don't wander off, Billy. Billy.
Damn. Is he sensing her fear? Oh, that's awful. Oh my God. That is the nightmare of a lifetime. Wow. Whoa. Okay, so she felt that. Look at oh, he's holding his clothes. Did he like drain some life energy out of her maybe? Too? Inadvertently. No, 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 no. Tyrone, no. Bad idea. See, this is why I don't dry clean my clothes. I just wash them right here at home because look at this. People just be taking your stuff and wearing it and then putting it back on the rack like it's clean.
I know that you live in that church.
Thought he was dumb.
Why didn't you say anything?
Because you didn't want me to know, so I didn't.
Aw, he's actually sweet.
We can handle it.
AKA don't go. He just lost 55 large though.
Listen,
I'm not in love with you?
there is no me.
Cold blooded. I didn't even know she could talk.
I need your help. Please.
How selfish is she? Very selfish. Okay, sir, you're seriously broke into someone's house with your head with holding a gun like this? Okay, it came out of both hands there. What? All right. Wow. Okay, that was episode 2, which was called Suicide Sprints, and this show looks like it's gonna get all kinds of crazy before we're done. Good, very good. I like that. It's very interesting. I like that this show, the pacing is really good so far, which gives me a lot of hope. I have to say, with these smaller series that have come out of Marvel since last year, being The Runaways, The Gifted, and now this one, the pacing has been so good in these. Like, I'm really, really impressed with the fact that they get things going really quickly. They don't spend too much time on the build-up. They really are just making sure that we're getting development, but we're also getting a good, like, amount of situational things happening that kind of push our plot along and push our characters along and raise the stakes to make it interesting. So I don't know if it's the same person who's heading these all up. I'm thinking not, because I think it's on several different networks, but either way, really well done there. Whew, this episode, where to begin? I didn't even write that many notes because I was really kind of paying attention to what was going on. We had a lot in as far as character development, again, seeing more of kind of the flaws, I guess you could say, in these characters. The first episode was very much about like the introduction. We got to see their lives. We got to see kind of where they are and why they're kind of both on a precipice as far as where they're going to go with their lives. But it very much kind of came from the angle of, oh, these poor kids, you know, she lost her dad and her mom is an addict. Oh, he lost his brother and now his parents are like pretending to be perfect now and kind of trying to shove him into a mold that he's not. But now this episode, I feel like, kind of turned it around a bit and kind of showed that they're not exactly perfect either, which is great because we all know that when we're going through something personally, it's easy for us to kind of blame everything around us and not really take responsibility for what's going on our part. And when it comes to, let's start with Tyrone, for example. Tyrone, obviously, we know why he's held on to this whole thing with this cop, because at a very young age, he was made to be a liar when he wasn't. You know, he told the truth about what happened to his brother, and thanks to the connections that this cop has, his uncle, his brother's death went unanswered as far as justice, and it also made him seem to be some kind of a liar and untrustworthy child. So he's been carrying the burden of trying to prove to his parents that he's not a liar all this time, even after he did do something very illegal by stealing that car radio. He also kind of, you know, I don't think until this episode when he actually touched his mother and saw, you know, all the anxiety she's actually living with, that he really started to realize that he's kind of been a bit selfish. And it's a very fine line. Like, I personally thank God I've not lost a family member in that way, but I can only imagine that for Tyrone's parents, again, remember, they weren't there. All they know is that their son was out one night and then suddenly washed up on a shore and they don't know what happened. It's one of those things where they kind of are probably thinking, okay, well, you know, they knew he was, from the sounds of things, that Tyrone's brother was into some bad behavior. They knew he was kind of potentially going that direction. And then basically they didn't do enough, and then he ended up dead. And so now the parents are kind of, you know, carrying all this probably guilt on their own shoulders, as well as fear for this living child that they have left, to not have this happen again, and doing everything that they can to do better. You know, they're imperfect, so unfortunately some of that does translate into some pressure on Tyrone, and some of that does translate into potentially being a little more protective of him than they probably would have if his brother was alive. But conversely, and this is very hard because Tyrone is so young, Tyrone needs to be more empathetic to the fact that, you know, his parents aren't perfect, and that even though they don't show themselves falling apart at the seams every day, that they are just barely holding on. And I think he needed to see that with his mom, to see that she carries this fear, this, oh God, gut-wrenching fear of losing Tyrone, and kind of relives this loss of her eldest son on a regular basis. And that just the fact that she doesn't choose to cry and be a mess about it daily doesn't mean she's over it or that she's necessarily holding it all together. She's functioning and she's doing well and she's trying to do better, but she still has all these things she dealt with. So I kind of thought, you know, this episode kind of highlighted that Tyrone's been a little bit selfish and a little self-centered, you know, kind of thinking of how this all affects him. And in a way, he's not wrong. It's true that he shouldn't have to deal with being smothered, or the fact that his family is kind of ignoring the fact that he's being bullied by his, you know, by his schoolmates just because they want him to stay in the good school and get the good grades and move on up. But I'm hoping that he's gonna be a little bit more empathetic, a little bit as far as his parents and how he's interacting with them. I mean, he seems to be respectful, but I think the empathy was lacking a little bit, but that's true of most teenagers. We all go through that as teenagers where we're not so great with seeing outside of ourselves and seeing how things affect others. But also the way, this anger, you know, the preacher, the priest, he touched on it with Tyrone, that he's carrying around a lot of anger. And again, understandable. You know, he knows that the truth about his brother's death and he's never been able to do anything about it. And that's caused a lot of unresolved anger. It was true what he said, like the biblical verse about how when you hold on to anger, it's like holding a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else, you know, kind of thing. Like you're hurting yourself. It is poison for your system. It eats you up inside. It eats up all your joy. It eats up all of your ability to enjoy the better things in life. And so for Tyrone, that is kind of that's his flip side. He really is holding on to this vendetta. And while it's true that that man needs to be brought to justice, there are other ways outside of, you know, showing up with a baseball bat or a gun. Like, really? Like, you were gonna kill a cop, Tyrone? Like, this whole time, I'm like, oh my God. And he was so like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't even know that he was gonna hit his target. Oh my goodness. And then conversely, we've got Tandy, who again, you know, dead father, addict mother. It's definitely something that incurs sympathy from us because it's very terrible. Like, if you haven't been through it, then it is sad to see that she's basically had to take care of herself since her father died. The fact that she's kind of developed this detached attitude, you know, she really does abandon people. Her way of likely dealing with it, obviously with having her, you know, father die at such a young age and having a mother who's kind of been closed off emotionally. I mean, I think she's coped the only way she knows how, but we saw it in this whole episode with Liam. And at first, in the first episode, I wasn't sure if Liam was just her business partner, if it was just like, if the sex was just there to kind of keep the partnership going, but and her part it was, but for him, we definitely saw in this episode that he is in love with this girl and he really wants everything for this girl. And he was just kind of hoping that by being steadfast and by being there with her, she was going to eventually kind of come to him. She just can't allow herself to let people in. She really, like her mom in that moment, yes, her mom was wrong to have taken the money and taken the drugs. Clearly she's not all that great, but at the same time, her mom is clearly going through something. And I don't know, like we'll have to see throughout the series whether or not her mother's ever sought help for her addiction, if her mother's ever acknowledged her addiction, or if Tandy's ever tried to reach out to help her in some way. And again, I am not saying it is at all on a child to fix their parents or to you know, to get their parents the help that they need. But whenever you're a part of a family where someone is dealing with something, it doesn't really behoove you or them to just kind of go like this and go, that's not my problem. And I'm not sure if that's what Tandy's always done, but we saw that even with her father, even before the accident happened, she was very aware of the fact that her mom was more concerned about her back pain pills than she was about Tandy. So I feel like there's always been a disconnect in that relationship, and her mother has probably always felt that as well. Who knows when it started? As she mentioned, she's like, you don't stick around, like you don't stay around for the hard stuff. You take off when things are too hard or when you feel like things might be going to whatever. Like your answer is running and you don't really care about who you leave behind. It was very sad. I felt badly for Liam. Nothing sucks more than finding out the person that you've put a lot of emotional time and investment into doesn't feel the same way, but it's probably better for him. It was kind of a blessing that if it came down to it, if she really wasn't gonna love Liam the way he deserved, then it was better for her to let him go. But again, super cold that she was planning to let him rot in jail for a crime they both committed because she's so about saving herself. It's quite crazy. Like, she's got a lot of very deep set trust abandonment issues, I think, and unfortunately it's projected in the fact that she really isn't able to care about other people even when they've done nothing but show her kindness. Which kind of brings us into the other big reveal I think we saw for this episode is, I think, and again, I didn't see it in the Wikipedia page that described their powers, but it looks like Tandy is able to see people's hopes and Tyrone's able to see what people's worst fears are. Like, that's what I'm getting now from these little moments that they keep having. At first there were flashbacks in the last episode, but this episode, Tandy looked like she tapped into Liam's hopes, right? His brightest hope was that one day Tandy was gonna fall in love with him and marry him, and that she wasn't gonna be worried about the money or his background. She was just gonna choose him, and that wasn't what she wanted, clearly, and that's what kind of broke her heart because she knew she didn't feel that way. And then conversely, with Tyrone, when he was with his mother and they had that contact, it's like he saw her worst fears. Her worst fear was losing both of her children and being powerless to stop both of her children from being taken from her. So I think it's a very interesting side to the physical manifestation of their powers. And I like that because the show is very smart, because I mentioned in the last episode that things could get pricey with the special effects since both of their powers require a level of CGI, but they were smarter about it in this episode, and that using this kind of alternate to their power, it doesn't cost as much effects wise, but it's still really, really cool. And again, it makes me wonder if they come together, that balance, right? She's seeing all the shiny, 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 but she's not really ready to deal with it. And then versus him seeing all the darkness, and then, you know, like that darkness and light kind of need to be together like the yin and yang to balance each other out in more ways than one. So very interesting. I like how they're building this up, and I like how they're building up the necessity that the two of them are going to have for one another. Again, I mean, it says in the comics they do eventually get into a relationship, but I do hope it's one that's healthy and not just based on the fact that they kind of literally need each other. Physically actually need each other. Really good episode. Really, really good. I'm liking this show. I think it's going to be a really good season. I'm hoping they kind of keep up, like I said, with this good pacing and the development of the characters. Very interesting to see what happens now with this car accident. Very interesting that of all places he was drawn to her, but I guess it was his darkest moment and he needed the light, and maybe that's why he ended up in front of her car. But we will see in the next episode, I guess, as to what brought them back together again, and if they're going to figure out that they kind of need to work together with this whole powers thing. So what did you guys think of this episode? How are you liking the show so far? Do you think it's another home run by Marvel, or are you feeling like, you know, they could have done better? Also, what do you think this new cop, like this cop who just said her first line ever in this episode, how do you think she's going to fit into this whole thing? They spent a lot of time showing her to us in this past 2 episodes. How do you think she's going to factor into this whole thing with Cloak and Dagger? Do you think she's going to be up and up on this? And do you think potentially she's a mutant? Please leave your comments below. I'll be very interested to hear your thoughts. If you like this video, guys, please click like, and if you want to see more from this geeky face, please click subscribe. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe to me on the Stardust app. You can see the link below. I do all my reactions there as well. They're really quick. They're usually up a lot faster than YouTube, and it'd be great to see you there. So until next time, see ya.